Now we move to what I think is one of the most important moments in this ceremony, and certainly the most moving. Colonel David Brown, retired, who is now the Executive Director of the 45th Infantry Museum in Oklahoma City, is here today to talk about the uses of this facility and facilities like this, and about the men and women who have served out of these armories and these facilities. So please join me in welcoming Colonel Brown.
You have no idea how scary this is to be standing in front of educators. Steve has assured me that I will not be graded this time. No, I'm delighted there. I've had a good opportunity in my times in my military careers to come through and visit the soldiers in the Alva Armory here when it was still functioning as an armory. And actually found a map to get back to it and find it in good shape there too. And I'm just absolutely delighted that it's going to the university there, because as has been described before, this is a perfect fit. And all that. What I'd like to do is kind of give you a little bit of the history and the heritage here of the National Guard here in Alva, for both the original armory and for this one here. So, and you citizens of Alva, you have a long heritage of service to the state and the nation through military service. This heritage began when the 45th Infantry Division Signal Company was organized on 27 April 1923 by Captain Frank S. Wyatt with 126 enlisted men and 6 officers. The 45th Signal Company made its first encampment at Fort Sill that summer without a single item of communication equipment. You had the troops, didn't have the equipment. That comes later. Alva's National Guard Company, like so many other Oklahoma National Guard units, desperately needed a building dedicated to meet their training and equipment storage needs. At that time, they would rent space in upstairs halls that are over the stores in downtown. They would drill on the main streets, or if a farmer had a field there that was lying fallow, they can go out and practice their maneuvers in it. I mean, it was just literally what they could put together. But they needed a building, especially as they were upgrading with the equipment, a place to store it, a place to secure it. But the Great Depression hit local communities in the state of Oklahoma. No way they could fund construction of armories there. So consequently, these armories became the responsibility of the federal government. And the Works Project Administration, or the WPA as we call it today, was established in 1935 by President Franklin Roosevelt as part of the New Deal to create work for thousands of unemployed men. Construction on Alva's WPA Armory began in 1936 and was completed soon after. There's lots of arguments about when it was completed, so that's why I don't give an exact date. Knowing National Guard soldiers as I do, I imagine some of them were operating out of the building before it was officially finished. But it was one of 51 armories that was built by the WPA in Oklahoma. All of them were designed to look like military castle battlements with the use of parapets, arched entryways, false towers in the corner. Inside each armory was a central drill floor, a subterranean rifle range, which is always the coolest place to explore. All sorts of things you find down there at these old WPA rifle ranges. And, little note, if you know you have an F5 tornado that's going to make a direct hit, you will find me in the rifle range. Because it is the most solid and secure structure available. Now, in the United States Army, each soldier assigned to an Army division or brigade wears a unique shoulder patch that identifies that division or brigade to which the soldier is assigned. Since the creation of the 45th Infantry Division, the shoulder patch was a yellow swastika worn on a diamond background of red. The swastika was a Native American symbol for good luck that represented the strong Native American heritage of the 45th Infantry Division. Most people see a swastika and all they think of the Nazi Party. What most people don't realize was it was a Native American symbol that originated in this continent. It also originated in what is today Germany, and it was carried on banners by Teutonic Knights in the Crusades in the Middle East. and it also originated in the Hindu religion there in the nation of India. Each side of the square patch represented one of the 4 states, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, whose units comprised the division. The colors of gold and red represented the Spanish heritage of the 4 states. The first European explorers in those states were from Spain. However, when Hitler proclaimed the swastika as the symbol of the Nazi Party in Germany, the 45th Infantry Division shoulder patch was changed to a gold thunderbird on a square red background, as you see here. According to Native American lore, the thunderbird was a gigantic creature with lightning emanating from its eyes. The flapping of its wings caused the thunder, and it had carried a huge lake of water on its back, so whenever it tilted, rain would fall on the land and bring life to the land throughout all the desert areas. And it was consequently that soldiers assigned to the division became known as Thunderbirds. Alva's 45th Signal Company, along with the rest of the division, was called to federal active duty on 15 September 1940 for what was supposed to be 1 year of active duty training. However, as the war in Europe became a growing menace to American interests, diplomatic negotiations with the Emperor of Japan began to break down, and as the result, the 1 year of training was extended. And then after the Japanese attack on December 7, 1941, and Germany's declaration of war on 11 December of 1941, the division was going to go to war, and it did not come home again until 1945. During World War II, the soldiers from Alva, Oklahoma served in North Africa and then landed in Sicily as part of General Patton's 7th Army. From Sicily, the division landed on the beaches of Italy at Salerno, and then again at Anzio. At Anzio, pinned down on a surrounded beachhead, the 45th Infantry Division became known as the Rock of Anzio, upon which the German armored assaults were shattered. General Patton described the division as one of the best divisions, if not the best division, in the history of the United States Army. In August of 1944, the 45th Division landed on the beaches of southern France in what was called Operation Dragoon, and once again joined General Patton as part of the 3rd Army as its race across through Europe. The division crossed the Rhine River into Germany, breached the heavily defended Siegfried Line, captured Nuremberg, liberated the Dachau concentration camp, freeing over 32,000 starving inmates. And from Dachau, the division crossed the Danube River and captured Munich just before the end of the war in Europe. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, commander of the German forces in Italy, called the 45th Infantry Division the Falcon Division because of the shoulder patch, and he declared it to be one of the 2 best Allied divisions that he ever had to go up against. After the end of the war, the division returned home, and the division was reorganized into an all-Oklahoma division. The 45th Signal Company remained, it remained here in Alva and then was mobilized for the Korean War, as the 45th Division was one of 2 National Guard divisions mobilized for the Korean War, and it returned to federal duty on September 1, 1950. Following training at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and then later in Japan, the division landed at Incheon, Korea, proceeded by rail to an assembly area in Yeokchong, preparatory to relieving the 1st Cavalry Division on the frontline positions there on the DMZ. Advanced units entered combat on 10 December of 1951, and by the beginning of 1952, the entire division was heavily engaged in combat operations in Korea. In fierce battles against the Chinese and the North Korean troops, Oklahoma's 45th Division made the battlegrounds known as Old Baldy, Pork Chop Hill, Heartbreak Ridge, and Luke's Castle famous. In 4 campaigns throughout the Korean War, the division completed 429 days of combat. And in a special ceremony conducted at the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds on 25 September 1954, the division officially returned home. In the years after the Korean War, the Alva unit was redesignated Battery B, 1st Battalion, 189th Field Artillery, and was trained to fire the self-propelled 175mm howitzer and later the 8-inch self-propelled howitzer. Now, occasionally I get people asking me, wait a minute, 8-inch? 8-inch describes the diameter of the shell that it fires. It may be 8 inches in diameter, but it's about yay long. The unit's new mission, with all of its new equipment, quickly made it apparent that the WPA Armory was obsolete and not able to meet the needs of the new artillery unit. And the city of Alva deeded the land upon which we are today for a new armory in 1971, and construction of the new 16,000 square foot armory was completed in 1978. We all remember 1978, but I'd kind of like to walk you back a little bit. 1978, Jimmy Carter was President of the United States. The Camp David peace accords between Egypt and Israel were signed. The first cellular telephone system was introduced by the Illinois Bell Telephone Company. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was playing in the movie theaters. The top show on TV was Happy Days. We all remember that? Are we having flashbacks here? Pope John Paul II became the first Polish Pope and the first non-Italian Pope in over 450 years. The Dow Jones averages, for those of you who follow that, was a shockingly high 805 points. It is now over 10,000 points, just by comparison. And this is always the worst. The average cost of a gallon of gas in 1978 was an outrageous 63 cents a gallon. The division itself, however, no longer existed. In 1968, the division was reorganized into 3 separate brigades. These brigades were identified as the 45th Infantry Brigade Combat Team, the 45th Fires Brigade, or sometimes called the Field Artillery Brigade, and the 90th Troop Command, which had all the support units. Now, all these units trace their lineage to the 45th Division. The last unit assigned to this armory was Company B, 1st Battalion, 179th Infantry. And then just to kind of walk you through, the soldiers from this armory were among the first to answer the call for help from the Gulf Coast after the devastation of Hurricane Katrina. They have since deployed to Iraq, Kuwait, and they have just returned again from Afghanistan earlier this year. Now I want you to think about this. The legacy of the soldiers who walked in both of the Alva armories is now recorded in the history books of the United States, North Africa, Europe, Korea, the Middle East, and Southwest Asia. For almost 90 years, the citizen soldiers of Alva have truly made a difference at home and throughout the entire world. So therefore, it's highly appropriate that this armory, with its history and heritage for service to the community, be returned to the community to continue a tradition of service. And I'm just delighted that it's going to the university. You can't beat that. Thank you.